maybe last week. Good morning. It's Friday, December 20th. This is the second of two monthly meetings of the Dryden Public Broadband Committee. We meet twice a month. First meeting is to review the previous month's activity and business, and the second meeting is to talk about all other issues going on with Dryden Fiber. This is a meeting open to the public and the media, as well as the invited guests are the Broadband Committee, which is a group of both elected officials as well as volunteers from the community. Our agenda today is going to cover the SLA that we currently have for any type of incident, as well as updates on other things going on with the project, from backhaul provider to MIP update to a map update and other construction details. As we begin most of these meetings, we'll start with our mission. Do we have a volunteer from the call to read the mission?
I'll do it.
Go for it.
Our mission is to provide reliable, affordable, high-speed, fiber-based internet access. We offer state-of-the-art technology and unmatched customer service.
Mark, I think you've been part of the committee since the beginning. What does this mission mean to you?
This mission means to me to make the town of Dryden a better place for people to work from home and enjoy high-speed, reliable service without having to worry about some other provider changing the rules in the middle of the game.
That's a good one. Cool. Well, it must be working because we have some record numbers again for overall customer base and growth. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. First thing on the agenda is our next meeting is scheduled to be Friday, January 3rd. That would be the reporting meeting on December. It is the third day of the month, although Monday, the first of the month is a holiday, and next week is Christmas. So I would like to not have that meeting that day as the reporting meeting. We could still meet, but I don't know that we'll have all the reports on the month of December all together by January 3rd. The week after, I'm out of town on the 10th. We could still meet, but I won't be here on the 10th. And the next Friday I'll be here would be on the 17th. So we could have the 3rd as a discussion meeting and the 17th as a reporting meeting, or for the month of January, we could just have one meeting on the 17th for the reporting on December. Discussion?
Why don't we have a discussion meeting and then you can do the reporting next one?
That makes sense to me too, because it seems like we have a few things to discuss that we might not get through. That way we can kind of kick them forward into the next year.
Good. I'll let the operations team who do a lot of the work on the reporting meeting know that they have until January 17th for that. Give them some more time. All right. So the big question here is the service level agreement discussion. I put together a document that I sent around a couple days ago. I don't think it's changed at all. Let's see if I can display that here too. All right, so right now our SLA, which is posted on our website for residential and for business, the section is the network service availability. Dryden Fiber is committed to providing 99.99% service availability on the business service agreement. I believe it's 99.999%. So it's actually 5 nines or 3 nines after the decimal point. Service non-availability must be reported by the customer by opening a trouble ticket, and the start of the service non-availability starts when the trouble ticket is opened. This is in the SLA. This is not how we have been operating to date. Should Dryden Fiber not provide 99.99% service availability for a given month, the customer is entitled to a credit against the monthly recurring charges as stated. It's in minutes. I converted it down here to hours because I read hours better than minutes after 120 minutes. So the non-availability hours, if it's off for any time under 2 hours in a given month, there's no credit.
Mm-hmm.
2 to 4 hours, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. It doesn't go linearly, but the credits do. And then it caps out anything up to the entire month. You max out at 50%. Once you hit 32 hours, you hit 50% of the monthly recurring charges.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the first thing, we have been providing credits to our customers from the time that we have a report anywhere on the network that it's offline. It's only happened, I believe, twice so far. Once was in May when the entire network went offline, and we had about 38 customers, 40 customers. That was on a Sunday afternoon. It reported at 1 p.m. Came back around 5 p.m. on Tuesday. So we went over the 32 hours. So we gave everyone a 50%. We did not follow the must be reported by the customer opening a trouble ticket in that case. We just went directly to, we know everyone's offline. We're going to give everyone the credit based on the hours they were offline, which was the full 50% for all those 40 customers. Second time it happened was last month on November 22nd. We were offline for about 22 hours, which gives us that 40% of MRC. Now, we were able to identify that was only 35 of the 170 customers that were directly impacted by that. So, Tony's here. You can move that chair if you want. So we identified who they were through the help with Integrity and just gave them the credit. We did not require each individual customer to report to us. At the size that we are and the team that would do this, it's really Integrity who's monitoring the network, the traffic, if it's off or on, Amanda who's doing the credits and the billing, and myself. I think we made a kind of a game time decision that said, we don't want to track every individual person who calls in, what time they called in as the starting point for that person's credit. And then when we know it's back up for each individual person to do the math on the number of hours and the percentage of credits, we just said, we know, especially given the outage in May, 100% of the customers are out for over 32 hours. So that's one question is, do we manage that or not? Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, Dave, and we discussed that in one of the meetings that yes, that's how we wanted to operate. So I don't think we want to nail it down to each how people are out. We want to do a better job than our competitors. And if we meet things a little beyond our contract and we can still do that fairly easily, we want to make it easy to manage on our side, and we want to make it feel good on the customer side. And I think what we've been doing is doing that. So, and I think we've had feedback from customers that make that a very positive experience and makes us different than all our competitors.
Well, yeah, I agree. The word that I think I heard from people on the committee last spring was you can call Time Warner Spectrum when you have an outage and be on the phone for an hour and make a claim, and they may or may not fulfill that, or they may just outright deny it. That's a lot of work for our customers to get any kind of a discount. So we said we're not going to play that game.
Right. And the other thing is, unless you have a ticketing system that is sending it out to the customer, which I don't believe it is, Integrity is taking it down. But I don't believe they actually send an email back to the customer with a ticket number that you could track that kind of thing. So unless we have that sort of infrastructure in place, it makes it very hard for a customer to determine as well. So I think we're at a reasonable point. What I am concerned about is that we want to be able to make sure that we've done everything to ensure that our uptime is really good. So I know we basically fixed the problem that was the original outage. So we now have two paths out to the internet and two different internet providers. And so that really allows us that if one of them goes out, we've got another path. So we've hardened our network somewhat. Where I'm a little more leery of now is that I thought we had a little better coverage with uh, our UPSs to keep the boxes up. So I'd like to discuss what that is to see whether we can really meet that 2 hour outage time, which is dependent on hardware staying up for that. And I think that was some of our problem. I mean, we lost 2 nodes too, which is unusual, but I want some sort of, we've not discussed this yet, but I would like to know sort of how long we think each of those individual boxes should stay up under the UPS for each of our 4 points of, what do they call them? Points of presence? I forget what we call that. So
Yeah, the pops or the
the
cabinets.
pops, yeah, pops.
So Ryan has been working on this, Ryan Garrison from Hunt. He's been working on an operations and maintenance plan document that describes all the pops, how they're operated, what kind of systems we have in place for heating and cooling and for batteries. We should be able to present that next month in January. I don't know if at the January 3rd meeting or the January 17th meeting, but we can go deeper into that. The November 22nd outage did have a couple of failures that were potentially resolvable, or that maybe shouldn't have happened. So there's the batteries. The batteries did not last as long as we expected them to.
Mm-hmm.
We did get support from the Dryden DPW, who was able to bring in a generator and get it connected to the Yellow Barn pop and then refuel it, I believe 3 or 4 refueling trips during that day on Saturday the 23rd to keep the generator going. Since then, the batteries have been tested. There's new UPSs, I believe, that we're bringing in. We're talking about how to make the power be a lot more hardened. So if we do lose power and then we have the batteries and we have the UPSs and we have the ability to bring in generators, is it possible to have generators on site permanently that can be switched over automatically? And we're still working on if and how that's possible.
Yeah. So,
Ryan's
but
working on it pretty closely. I don't know if Ryan, you want to add anything before we go back to questions.
Yeah, I would just clarify, we had a UPS failure in the Yellow Barn pop, so that it was like an all-out failure for the UPS and Yellow Barn, so it wasn't a runtime issue there. But what we're doing to address it is we're getting some expanded battery packs, and the batteries will give it longer runtime for the UPSs. And then we're evaluating where we can have on-site generators that will kick on and provide, like monthly tests and everything. So the idea being that if we ever had a failure with a generator, the UPSs will carry over until the generator kicks on. But if we ever had a generator failure, we have enough battery to sustain the cabinet until we can deploy a temporary generator.
yeah, so what's that time? I mean, I guess what time frame? Because what I heard was the Freeville one lasted around 20 minutes, and we really thought that would be an hour and a half, or at least that was my impression. But so I was wondering, for each of the cabinets, do we know what the expected battery life, or what was our setting of what our expectation was? Because I thought it was around.
Yeah,
I think it was around 2 hours.
Or 2 hours.
Yeah,
Right.
the Freeville power went out around 9:30, and I think the UPS went off around 1.
Oh, okay. So that actually was significantly longer. Okay, so
yeah,
yeah,
but
you want to make it bigger than your first, for the first couple hours where we can keep going, because we know that usually these outages are pretty short.
Yeah, and just to kind of wrap it up, we didn't get the 6 hours we thought we were going to get. Just to be clear. And I think part of that had to do with the heater in the cabinet. So we got a little figuring out to do there.
I was just doing some quick math in my head, and it seems like longer outages at key infrastructure points would be the things that will cost us the most. So, I know it's a weird way of thinking about it, but like that might be where we want to put a lot of effort to make sure that we avoid long outages for the most amount of people. And it sounds like we're kind of covered for most of it. I just wanted to throw that perspective in there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go to Tony first, and then I can say something.
So not that we want to do what Spectrum does, but I know from experience that the Spectrum box down the hill from me has a 4-hour UPS in it, lasts about 4 hours. After that, if it's without power, it's out. And I'm not aware that Spectrum, whatever, so if we had a 36-hour outage, after 4 hours, it's out. I don't know that they do anything else to cover that. I think, what we're talking about is better than that, because we're talking, I think if we're saying 6 hours is what we're shooting for on the UPSs, and then the possibility of bringing in generators as needed, or having automatic standby generators would be the ideal. I think that puts us well above what now I don't know what Point does for backup.
I don't know what it does either.
Yeah.
And the other fact is you're relying on the customers themselves to have backup power, which some have, some don't.
Well, not in all
As
cases,
well.
because when the Yellow Barn one went out, there were people whose power came back after 3 hours, but the Yellow Barn pop was out for what, 36 or
22.
23, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just because my point is that you could have the pop without power, but have customers that have power.
Yeah, I was one of those cases. I
Yeah.
never lost power, and
Right,
but my
right.
internet went down. So
I would just say that one major advantage, just to kind of use Tony's example that he gave with Spectrum, we have an advantage over that. They have a distributed power architecture. I mean, we've consolidated these things to 4 points that we need to worry about. So I think we've got a plan, and that also includes a communication. Where do these emails go? Like when the generator self-tests, who gets that and who does something about it if something goes wrong. So we're just trying to put those pieces together.
Yeah. No, this sounds good.
Yeah, this is one of the cases where, well, a couple of things. One is many of the customers who didn't have access to Dryden Fiber also didn't have power. And unlike a landline telephone that you could use without electricity, even if we were providing them fiber, if they didn't have electricity at their home, I think that number was pretty small. It was like 5 out of 35 even had power throughout. Like their power came back when our power came back. So it was a pretty small number. We've learned a lot. Ryan, the team from Netegrity, the team from Gleeman and Clarity have been talking about like how do we work through this going forward. In some ways, we're lucky. Also, surprisingly unlucky to have 2 points on the network go offline. Because if a single one goes offline, it's okay. But when 2 go, then you have different types of troubles.
Yeah. When we talk about these credits, my feeling is, number one, I think I think the curve up to 40% is steeper than it really needs to be. And I would argue if someone is actually out for a whole month, why would they pay anything for that month?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, chances of being out for a whole month are pretty slim. But
it's not even. It's 33 hours
Yeah.
gives you 50%, and then any number over which is not even a day and a half.
Yeah, see that I think that gets up to that high percentage. I think it gets up too fast.
I think this came from Empire. Ryan might know where it came from.
Yeah, so this
work
might have
this.
been written for like ILEC rules years ago. So incumbent local exchange carriers, you guys know the term. It's basically like the local telephone company. So that might come from there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems 33 hours seems like an awful short time to get up to that maximum credit.
That was the feedback from many people. Were like, "Wow, we're only off for this much. We got a full half month."
Yeah.
I also wouldn't say like they should pay us for a full month if they were over 14 days or 15 days.
Yeah.
I'm open to having any member of the committee come back with recommendations. If you want to do some research and say, here's what we think we should change this to, and we can have that discussion. I don't know if it makes sense to have, the 18 of us on this call try to worksmith this
I agree.
together. But if someone wants to take this on and say, like, let me take a stab at a recommendation for credits and outages, I'd be open to that discussion. The topic I want to cover is not this must be reported by customer, because we are doing something better, or the nonlinear piece. Even the SLA is not quite close. It would be actually it'd be even less than the 2 hours. The key thing is this number 4, which is there are going to be some events that happen. We're lucky these are perhaps that these were outages of electricity at the POPs. You know, if something else happened, if a tornado came through and knocked out, 10 different places where the fiber crosses the road, we can't control that. Do we automatically start giving people credits back after 2 hours? That's going to take us a long time to repair, and many other cases. Do we want to have anything about unforeseeable circumstances that we can't manage?
Yeah, I think so. I think we want to protect ourselves a little from that. Maybe it's if a state of emergency gets done. I mean, how do you measure that? That's the thing. So
I mean, as far as I know, that what the competitor is doing, anything, a gust of wind is an act of God. So like
Oh.
any power outage, any impact on the actual fiber, a cut underground, it would not be an act of God. That'd be an act of humans. So that one we could say, but if the earth opened up, so anything weather related is pretty easy to define versus anything that is human related, accidental or not.
Yeah, like if somebody takes out a pole with a car, that's certainly not an act of God, right? But
Yeah, I mean, the other option is we can send this to either our broadband council at Phillips Lytle or to the municipal attorney for the town and say, how do we write this where we do make mention of weather or other unforeseeable circumstances? So we still have an SLA. We amend the SLA to say these are the cases where it would be acceptable.
I mean, the more likely thing to affect this system is just what did this last time. It would be something like an ice storm, right? That would take down large amounts of wire.
Yeah.
Right. That's the kind of thing that we are.
Can I
More
offer up one other scenario too?
Yeah, go for it, Ryan.
If someone else is working on the poles and damages our facilities, like what's the situation then? It was outside our control. Any recourse, we'd have to go back at like whoever was working on the pole, and sometimes that gets, it's just a legal fight. So like there could be some things like with other people on these shared, properties of utility poles they're outside of our control that might occur, and I don't know how we want to deal with that.
I kind of see that as a risk that we take by using a shared facility, but I mean, I hear what you're saying, and actually what I think should happen in those scenarios is, we should give credits to the customer, but then we should go after whoever did the damage to reimburse for the credits, but that's.
Yeah, I agree that we should give them credits for that. Where this came up above us on the food chain was when Windstream had their outage in May on that Sunday afternoon. They were running the service we buy from them, the backhaul internet service, at the very top of high tension power lines across rural New York State, not along the throughways. This actually only happened in Genoa. It wasn't very far. And I don't know if there was too much tension. There was a windstorm that day. It snapped the line, and the crew that could go in there and do the work had to be specialists because it's riding on top of high tension power lines. And I believe it took them till Wednesday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to go in there and do the repair. In that time, we were able to finish our network and use our secondary supply through the central office versus this Windstream supply at Pinckney. When we went to Windstream to ask them for credits, they basically said, we're not giving you any credit for this. It was a windstorm. We can't control that. It was, human error that made it too much tension that caused it to snap. whatever it was, they said, we're not giving you anything. And that seems pretty consistent.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
that they would not give us credit, and yet we gave full credit to our customer base.
Right, I think that
Could
seems
have
like
avoided
an us
that.
it seems like an us problem instead of a problem for our customers. So if what we're trying to communicate is that we're gonna take care of them, we just need to provide some context and let them know what sort of events are beyond our control and what aren't, but just let them know that if their service is interrupted, that we're gonna credit them.
Yeah, and I think somehow worded, I mean, if we want to protect ourselves from certain things, I think widespread weather events, like, for example, an ice storm or something along those lines, tornado. I mean, yeah. That could get really
I
problematic.
I mean, we definitely received some really positive goodwill. There were 200,000 NYSEG customers in New York State that were without power on November 22nd, 23rd. I think some of them into the 24th, 25th. The fact that we were offline for 22 hours was shorter than many people, and that we are crediting them back 40% of their monthly bill for that less than 1 day of outage is a very positive
Oh, yeah,
goodwill from our customer
yeah,
base.
yeah.
And I think it's great, and I think it's a differentiator, so that's why we need to kind of emphasize that as something that sets us apart.
Yeah, so the question is what is our financial risk here? It's 50% of our MRCs basically. And so it's and the likelihood of something happening. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the next
I
question would
mean,
be, how often could this happen? How much could it cost us?
so
Not
putting
just
some work,
it's,
yeah.
but
So,
how much could it cost us in terms of people deciding not to stay with us?
yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
one
think
thing.
people are pretty conditioned to force majeure clauses. So I I think we need to have this in there, and it would be kind of irresponsible for us to not, have a force majeure clause. We can't control a war or terrorist strikes or any sort of things that could really knock us out for an extended period, and that could create a huge liability to our overall system if we don't have a clause like this.
Yeah, because acts of terrorism are one of the things, and you've got, there's potential of, at least I know when I worked in the telephony world, we worried about that. We locked, covers to things where somebody could drop a bomb in, a hole and blow out some of the cables. So, you do put preventative stuff in there, but I think we should have the statement. I just think we don't need to worry too much. It's more the long-term sort of thing, if it is what we're worried about. And I think we'd make a decision, whether we, like we do giving our customers back the money, we would discuss that and decide whether it fit that sort of thing. So
I think that's fair.
So
I can go to our broadband attorneys at Phillips Lytle and provide them both the uh, residential and business SLAs, and then ask them to make an amendment that includes this. Then bring that back to the committee, as soon as I have it, but probably in the next month.
Okay.
So, if we're amending the SLAs, is there anything else we need to change? You want to sort of do it one sort of set of things if we got anything else in there we need to change? Because you have to let all your customer know that, oh, we've slightly changed the SLA. So
I haven't bumped anything else in the SLA as yet. I don't know if we want to use this time to adjust the length of service non-availability credits as part of this, but that would take someone to do some research and make a recommendation.
I like your idea of doing that. That's the two things in this I think need to be adjusted are this clause you just talked about, and that section that sets the credits.
Yeah,
I think it just need, I mean, I like the credits. I just think it gets to the top value. I think it gets to the 50% too quickly, I guess. You know, I just think that needs to be adjusted a little bit.
do you want to take that on?
Sure.
All right. So Tony's going to make some recommendations on the length of service non-availability credit, and I'll work with the attorneys on the other part of the SLA, and we'll come back either on the January 3rd meeting, although that is not very far away. It's only 2 weeks away with the 2 holidays, or the January 17th meeting, or maybe even in early February.
And we're really focusing also on the right thing of hardening our network even more. So,
Yeah,
I mean, which is really important. That's really what we want to do. So we don't ever have to pay out, because, you know, that's what we want to aim for. So
that would be the ideal, but there's only
Yeah.
so much hardening we can do, and there are things that can happen, you know, that could, you know, the good news is that these things that would cause these sort of widespread damage, like an ice storm or terrorist activity or those kind of things, it's likely going to affect all the services, not just us, right? So it's not like someone would have necessarily another option to go to, maybe, except maybe Starlink, but you know,
Yeah.
because I mean, we're on the same poles as a lot of these other services, right? So it's, yeah.
All right, that's good. Thanks for this conversation about this. All right, back to our agenda document. Next up was the backhaul provider, somewhat related to the outage back in the spring. We looked at that point, we only had one provider that was connected to the network. The other one was almost connected. And within 48 hours of the outage, we were able to connect from the central office with our first light connection into the network, and then bring everyone back online 24 hours before Windstream came back online. But it did give us the opportunity to look around and see what was out there for other parties. We weren't happy with Windstream, as I put in the document that I sent out earlier about switching to Cogent. However, what we found is looking at the pricing Cogent is now offering, which is substantially lower than they were offering when the project first started 4 years ago. With that, we did some negotiation with Cogent. They did request or offered to provide service at both ends of the network, even with the east end of the network at the central office going south through their backbone to New York City, and the west end of Pinckney Road going north to Syracuse, then east to Boston, and giving us an additional discount. Our technology recommendation from NetIntegrity was use 2 providers. When we get big enough where we need 3 providers or 3 different places where we bring in the internet, we could use Cogent for 2 of them, like in Caroline. But for now, having 2 different providers, that makes the most sense. And financially, keeping Windstream at Pinckney made sense, and replacing the first light connection at the CO with Cogent made sense. They're a national provider. They're more inexpensive now than as they were 4 years ago. They also gave us a nice end of the year deal. They're in a 3-month agreement. They gave us 1 month off per year, or 3 months off total. The total savings per month is about $2,400. Over the course of 3 years, that's about $90,000. And on top of that, they're giving us 3 months free, and the new monthly rate is $3,300. So that's like another $10,000 in savings. So it's a substantial financial change. And I brought that to the town board yesterday so we could get it done before the end of the year. And the town board approved it last night.
So are they becoming the primary, or is Windstream still the primary?
Right now, we don't plan to change the primary of being Windstream. The network is currently set up that when, or if a provider like Windstream fails, it will automatically move over to our backup provider. That's what will happen. This is not an overnight change. It'll take about 120 to 150 days for Cogent to come in and get this going. So sometime in around May 1st to June 1st. So we have some time to plan and get ready for this. it's kind of a lot of stuff that happened in between last month and this month to get this going. Any questions on backhaul provider, Cogent, or anything else with Windstream?
No, it seems a no-brainer to do it. I mean, you're going to save quite a bit of money here. So, I mean, we might even be able to go back to Windstream and renegotiate some of their stuff, saying if the costs are that much differential. So,
They, I believe, are the cheapest of the three, but we could get the town hall connection, the central office connection, lowered by another $300 per month if we had both connections. But
mhm.
even though they have the networks going in different directions, one to New York, one to Boston, we still would rather have two different companies providing a service.
It is
No, I think it's reasonable to have two different companies. So, but you can,
We could still go to them and say, hey,
yeah, you can always ask, say, hey, we got this. Yeah, so what can you do for us? So, can you do anything for us? So, and we're municipal. We aren't a for-profit sort of thing. So,
So Dave, is the first light connection gonna go away? Is that what I'm
we'll go away
understanding?
when it switches over in the
Okay.
spring.
Gotcha.
All right, next item I have on here is the MIP. That's the Municipal Infrastructure Program Update. There's three items on here, the IMA, the GDA, and the overall timing. The IMA is the intermunicipal agreement between the town of Dryden and the town of Caroline that discusses how we work together really to manage and fulfill the obligations of the MIP grant. That includes approvals for making purchases, receiving invoices, approving paid invoices and making payments, where the cash is going from Caroline's money that they are bonding or that they're using a ban to pay for their parts of the project. But the town of Dryden as Dryden Fiber as the lead project partner to do the ordering, instead of having like each town have to do management of the project, it all is being done by town of Dryden. So the IMA is going to put the legal wrapping around it, so we have all the permissions to do the work that has to happen to do the purchasing, receive the invoices, get the invoices approved, and then paid. I would say we're close on that. We've had some good conversations between the members of the Dryden Fiber Steering Committee for IMA, which is Dan and Jason, as well as the Caroline representatives, Mark Whitmer, who's the Caroline supervisors, part of that steering committee. Also, our town attorney, our municipal attorney, and town of Caroline's municipal attorney, as well as our broadband firm, Phillips Lytle. So they've all been playing a part to bring this together. I hope we'll have an IMA crafted and ready for review by the end of next week, which is January 3rd, and then move that forward for the boards to approve in the first 2 weeks of January. That will then allow us to sign the GDA. That's the grant dispersal agreement that is only signed by the town of Dryden with New York State, that describes all the major milestones and the obligations that we have to fulfill to be reimbursed for the grant. Before I talk about timing, any questions about the IMA or the GDA, the intermunicipal agreement or the grant dispersal agreement? Mark.
Hey, Dave, I'm just asking for clarification. So the GDA, which also contains the guarantee document that Caroline will sign, that's wrapped up. We're comfortable with that, right?
There's a few missing pieces in the draft they sent over on Monday. So
okay.
on Monday afternoon, a member of their team, a leading member of their team, sent over a draft, and there's just a few sections that were blank that weren't filled in. There was a place where it talked about the number of miles we were going to build each phase. And between Ryan and Amanda and I, we caught that the miles were listed as XXX. They're using they're using a GDA for, we believe, all 5 of the first phase projects are using the same grant dispersal agreement. So like crafting this one master one for all 5 projects across the first phase They'll probably use that same GDA grant dispersal agreement for all 27 of the projects that they've awarded in 2024. So as they are crafting this master document and then handing it down to each of the individual recipients, including Dryden Fiber, there are just some gaps where they didn't fill in the blank properly. So we weren't going to authorize signing something that had XXX for components of it. And there were a few other places where there was just missing information that they're working to fill in. So we're close. I think we'll have red lines back to them today from what we caught this week. They'll make some edits. We'll need to sign the IMA before we can sign the GDA. So that will also happen sometime in early January.
Okay, great. Thank you. My only other comment is on the IMA. You might have mentioned it, but the revised IMA will define operational interactions going forward. Is that right?
Yeah, so one of the things that we found in the IMA drafts that we have is there are three components of the relationship between the town of Dryden and the town of Caroline. The majority of it relating to the MIP grant and the GDA is around the construction phase. Who's going to manage the construction? Who's going to be making the purchase recommendations? Who's going to be doing the purchasing? When invoices come in, how is it funded? Who's going to be making the approvals of those payments and making the payments? That construction piece is a big part of the IMA. It's a big part of this grant with New York State. The second part of the relationship that we want to define in the IMA is the ongoing maintenance of the network that is in the town of Caroline. How is it managed, maintained? As we just talked about with outages, it's really easy to understand and define it as Dryden Fiber within the town of Dryden. But for the part of the network that will be constructed next year and then the year after in the town of Caroline, we want to make sure that everything's clear about how we're managing it, maintaining it, and paying for that.
Great.
The third part of it is in the customer relationships with the residents in the town of Caroline who sign up and how that functions within Dryden Fiber and the relationship between the two towns. So all three of those pieces will be defined in this revised IMA.
Great.
We
Thank
are,
you.
6 months away from having 6 or more months away from having customers. So that third piece is not happening immediately, but instead of having an IMA and then having an amended IMA in 3 months for maintenance and another IMA revised 3 months after that for customers. So let's try to get everything a lot more firmed up in how this relationship's going to work before we sign off on it.
Great.
Those are really important. Thanks for bringing those up, Mark.
Yeah. Thanks for explaining. Thank you.
For the last part on the overall timing, we could spend the rest of the day talking about overall timing of the MIP grant. The high level is we applied for permits, I believe 29 total permits that Dryden Fiber applied for. Now this was done through our partnership with Hunt and a number of other permitting partners soon after the award was granted. So it was granted in June. We had a press conference in June. In July, we submitted those with an expectation that we would hear back in May with the permits being approved based on our previous experience, which was an 8 to 10 month timeline for permitting, and then electrical, make ready, construction following that, and then splicing with our thought that we would start to get some of the stuff from this particular set of permits going next summer and start to roll this out for customers next fall, like August, September, October into Caroline. I believe, and Ryan can confirm this, we are somewhere between 2 and 4 months ahead of schedule on the permits.
Yep, that's correct. I would just add that roughly like 66% of our permits have moved their way through like One Touch Make Ready design and have ended up at NYSEG and Frontier and Verizon. And we have a few of them that are like going to bid. So, within 6 months, we've already got some applications out to bid. So it's better than expected. And you know, some of the discussions have been, you know, what the trick is going to come down to electrical make ready. It's caused some issues to date. So how can we maybe get more contractors or some different contractors involved so that dates don't slip?
Thanks, Ryan. That's really wise. We've been evaluating what's been going on in the last 6 months from what we thought was going to happen. And probably the biggest gap has been the timing and the management of the electrical make ready from the electrical contractors. We cannot control when they do the work. We have primarily, I mean, we've only relied on Richardson. They've done 100% of the make ready so far, the electrical make ready. They are a regional player. They have other projects. When there was the hurricanes that happened in the southeast, that pulled them off of our work and everything else. During this ice storm in November, that slowed them down. We need that resource going to keep the entire project moving forward across all 29 of these permits. There's a piece for each of them. So having a second or even a third provider is going to have a big impact on getting to the deadline on time.
I did ask Syracuse Utilities on our meeting this morning if they were aware of any contractors that were less prone to these issues of being pulled off jobs for, you know, weather events and stuff, and they did not have an answer for me. But they did agree that, you know, get more involved and you have a better chance of working on more things at one time. So
yeah, I would say maybe Ryan could talk about this a little bit. We've been doing everything very much like finish this project, do the next project, do the next one, do the next one. Where with MIP, we're going to have to be doing concurrent parts of these permits. I think at most we've had 2 Syracuse Utilities teams running at the same time.
yes,
Like
Yep.
an underground team and an aerial team.
yeah,
To reach this
and
number.
apparently 2 Richardson crews too, but it hasn't really resolved any of the issues.
Yeah, there's definitely a bottleneck there. So having twice as many electrical contractors on the electrical make ready is going to have a big impact. I believe Syracuse Utilities can provide more resources on the construction, and we'll have to find out regarding splicing. We do have the ability to tap in clarity on the splicing side if we need to. So adding more resources, the challenge right now is not the money. We're good for the money with the grant to get this done. It's getting the right resources in play. As of today, it's December 20th. We have just over 24 months left in the project, the MIP project. We're glad to be a little ahead or a lot ahead on permitting, but there's not much breathing room. You know, this is probably the thing that is going to age Ryan and I more than anything else in our lives. We're the 2 leads on the project. So there's a lot happening, and we're trying to get to that finish line in 24 months ahead of schedule.
Yeah, that's another good point that we really took another look at the schedule, and instead of trying to work our way from a top down, bottom up estimating, where we, you know, looked at like how quickly can we actually get this done, and like let's set some targets that way so that we have, you know, it's not what we're projecting to the public, but it's what our schedule is so that we can push our contractors to meet those deadlines and get done with months, you know, months to deal with the closeout process that we're kind of unaware of what it is right now. You know, the Connect All office has told us some details, but not everything. So knowing that we'll have kind of an unknown closeout process, we have revised the schedule to try to get done months ahead of time. And ahead of time would be ahead of 12/31/2026.
That's right. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Any questions on MIP? Go for it, Mark.
Oh, sorry. Just, I just want to make sure I heard everything correctly, so I don't spread misinformation or whatever. But did you say? I mean, is when you do that analysis, are you estimating that we're going to be able to finish well ahead of schedule? I guess that's a question for Ryan.
Yeah, we're setting that as a target so that we can, try to get those months ahead of the deadline. Yeah. And again, we're trying to figure out how we'll convey that to the public, but once we get closer to those dates, we'll know more
Yeah,
and we can
yeah,
react.
right. I don't want to, yeah, I'm not asking for dates or anything, or I don't want to spread false hopes or whatever, but I mean, that's, to me, that's encouraging that, um, that you're thinking that that even with your and Dave's gray hairs, that we may be able to wrap it up ahead of the 12/26 deadline.
2025 is going to be a very critical year to see where we end up by the end of the year, because that's really going to set the pace for the next 6 months ahead of that, which is our target. So yeah, I think this next up year is a big year for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look at like before a big game, look at the keys of the game. Monitoring these 29 permits as they move through electrical make ready over at not daily, not weekly, but like quarterly. So we'll do this in January, we'll do it again in April and in July and in October, all the way into 2026. As we monitor those permits as they go through electrical make ready, it's going to tell us a lot about the future. If 29 out of 29 are done this time next year, we're in a good position because it's construction, which is not just construction. We have over 100 miles of construction to do. But if we get there and it's like, wow, we've only, or even halfway through this year, halfway through 2025, if we only have 5 of them done, or by this time next year, we only have 10 of them done, then we're way behind. So we'll be able to use those 29 permits in the electrical make ready stage to see where we are on track or not.
Okay, and from what you said before, am I understanding that the electrical make ready is the bottleneck for this?
It has been for the last 6 months. It probably has been for the last year.
Okay.
Whenever we try to predict what's going to happen, we have these meetings weekly, we have them monthly, and some of the calls we have them bi-weekly. It always comes back to, well, we said we would do this, but it's just not done yet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions on MIP before we move on? I'd say we're very engaged. Ryan, Amanda on the accounting and finance side, Kate from Hunt's team that's leading our permitting for the project, the attorneys, both the municipal attorneys and our internet broadband attorneys, like all over this MIP grant. Like there's no lack of engagement or interest in running this in parallel to running the entire company, which is doing a lot of construction, getting a lot of construction done, and installations. So let me talk about some of the other parts of what's happening. Probably going to go over a few minutes. I know it's 11:29. Business tier updates. We are just basically missing an approval from New York State. Now that New York State is granting us money, they want to approve some marketing materials to go out. So we're going to get some feedback and make sure that we have the right logos and colors and things on the postcards for the business tier. Once that's done, we'll be able to start to market the new updated business tier to the business commercial accounts in the community. On the marketing side, we have produced a letter that will go out to all the taxpayers, all the parcel holders in town in January, and gives them an update on what's going on with Dryden Fiber, as well as an invitation for them to check out Dryden Fiber and learn more about that. That was approved by the town board last week, and it was it wasn't last minute, but it had a deadline to be approved, to be inserted, to go in the tax bills that are going to be going out in the next 2 weeks. And finally, under marketing, the phone number has been updated. If you've seen it on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, we pushed it out there. It's also in those accounts. It's every place that we could find the phone number. We've moved it over to the new phone number. I'll come back to construction updates in just a second, but probably the last thing to end where we are for the year is on installations and customer count. As of yesterday, we are well over 200 customers. We're at 231 paying customers. That's 66 new customers since November 1st. So we were at, I think, 165 on November 1st. We have 24 more scheduled as of yesterday for the month of December. Our partners at Clarity doing the installations, at Lehman making the phone calls to get these things scheduled, Integrity working on the scheduling, very hard at work getting everyone on the calendar. 14 more are scheduled for January. There's 21 more people who've requested service who are in the green zone who we have not yet scheduled. That brings us to 290 total customers. I think they'll probably that 290 will likely be live by the end of January. And that doesn't include everyone who signs up from today through mid-January, where we will schedule them within 2 weeks.
Clarity's been going gangbusters, just so you know. They've been really putting them out there.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, we only did 15 installations in the month of November due to the issue with O&Us, which means we did 50 installations between December 1st and December 19th. 50 installs in less than 20 days. So pretty hefty clip. Our customer count does relate back to our monthly run rate and where we break even. Our monthly run rate for December 1st was 15,255. If we take out that switch to Cogent, which won't happen for a few more months, but when it does, it'll bring our monthly run rate to around $13,000. Our current average is $51 per customer, which means our break even is $251. We are very close to reaching that with this Cogent switch. We should be, without that, I believe it's around 290, which we should be at by the end of January. So we're getting close to hitting this break even. That means that we're paying all of our monthly bills, costs to run the business, and then we start to pay down the construction costs that we've been incurring and that we continue to incur even with the MIP project funding a portion of the project. We still incurred quite a bit of debt leading up to MIP, and there will be continued construction costs after MIP. So positive news on installations, customer accounts, and this break-even number, and trying to pay back the construction costs. Any questions on customer count, installs, or break-even?
Hey, Dave.
Mark.
Did somebody else?
You can start, Mark.
Okay. The tax letter update. So I'm wondering if that is information is something that should go to Caroline residents too. Our tax letters just went out to mailboxes the other day, so that's passed, but we could put in the newsletter or something. Anyway, I'd be interested in seeing the newsletter just for my own information and yeah, let me know if you think maybe it's premature. If it's premature for Caroline residents, that's fine. So
yeah, I feel like your newsletter that went out in November was a huge accelerator.
great.
And based on the schedule, I think Ryan might actually have a date of the first roads in Caroline. It's not until pretty late into 2025. And we want people to get excited, but I don't want to get them excited every single day.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, there's this thing's coming, because to me, it's so far in the future. And we just told everyone on your town newsletter in November, like we're working on it, but I don't want people to be like, I got two notices within 60 days and it's still not here for 6 months.
Yeah, where is it?
Yeah. But the 2026 tax bill definitely should have something from both towns.
Okay, perfect, great.
And just so you know, there are quite a few Town of Caroline customers that have already signed up. There are a number of them, just so you're aware.
Great.
Yeah, I believe as of December 1st, there were already 40 people signed up, and that number has continued to go up.
Yeah.
Since then. All right, I have operations and maintenance down here, which we did talk about quite a bit regarding the outages. So I'm not going to cover that. The last thing is, let's see if Ryan has any construction map updates for drydenfiber.com we want to talk about today in advance of January 1st.
Yeah, so Joel's working on some updates right now. The big update is Lee Road. You want me to share my screen, Dave?
You can just do it verbally if you don't have a map or if you don't want to.
Yeah. Yep. So Lee Road, we got that all spliced in and that's ready for service. So that's going to turn green. It's about, I want to say, a little over 50 households in that area. We have some other miscellaneous parcels in the village of Dryden that we're going to add to that. We did Livermore Road, a good section of that, basically from Route 13 down to right behind TC3. And then we have some Route 13 addresses north that are also going to be turned green. And then on the construction side of things, we hung a lot of cable this month. So basically ready to be spliced in our Dryden 9, which is Fall Creek Road, the sections of that's still yellow. We have all the country roads that are kind of in that north section of town that the splicers will be working on first week of January. And the big next project is going to be Syracuse Utilities will be running cable because the make ready has been completed on Route 38 north from the village of Freeville to the town border, and also on West Dryden Road from Caswell Road all the way to the town border. So that cable will be installed in the first couple of weeks of January, and then we'll splice that in the back end of that month. So we'll be making a lot of progress on the west side of the northwest part of Dryden in the month of January. Any questions on that?
Yeah. When are you actually going to release the map updates?
I'm going to try to do that today. I'm working with Joel on it. So yeah.
Okay, great.
You'll probably see the web map turn green first, and then the as-built and spreadsheets go out after that because we have to update the map live. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so there'll be a
that include the Aetna fixes too, the up Aetna Lane. So
yeah,
you guys were working on that.
Yeah, we still have a small section on Aetna Road that we have to finish, but we've got Wood Road taken care of.
Oh, Wood Road's going to go green?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
Perfect. Okay,
So,
great.
some parts of it. I mean, it's a long road.
Parts of it. Yeah, it's a long road.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Yeah. Yeah. The part on the Aetna Square.
Okay.
So there'll be basically a mini update in the next day or two, maybe today, maybe on Monday, but maybe today. And then coming in January, there'll be our quarterly update. We met yesterday to start looking at what that looks like. And the mapping of that will be what we think is going to happen in the first half of next year, the first quarter next year, quarter 2, 3, and 4 next year, and then 2026. With trying to keep it just to the 4 colors. Green is what's live now, yellow, 3 months, blue, 4 to 12 months, and then orange for beyond, which has been MIP, but that is going to be the 2026 color. We can actually we can use that January 3rd meeting, as long as Ryan and I are both here, and maybe Joel, to do a deep dive into what the map looks like, so we're all together and get some alignment around the map. And then we will continue to update that map quarterly as we bring in new parcels and permits get approved and they move through to be a little bit more predictive. It's not quite, but it's similar to like the weather predictions for 2 weeks from now. It could be hit or miss. A week from now, pretty good, but tomorrow, I can tell you what the weather's going to be. Probably similar for what we're looking at over the next 2 years. We know by the end of it, we're going to have everything green by the end of 2026. But where and when exactly, which month, even which quarter, we need to get a little closer to know some of those. We'll start to have that conversation at that January 3rd meeting.
Brian, what's going on with the underground crews, and what's the impact of winter on the underground work?
They can drill, but they cannot plow. Does that make sense? So our two methods of installation for underground conduit are directionally drilling it, where they dig a pit and they drill from one pit to the next pit. They can do that all winter long. So to use the example for Hanford Drive, that will be mostly directional drill because you have these driveways and things that you need to avoid. So rather than bring a plow in for these small little sections, they'll just drill the whole thing. But when you're out in the country and you have fields and no driveways, it's much more economical to plow that in. So we will not do much plowing until the ground thaws. But we will be directionally drilling all through the winter.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for that update, Ryan. I think that is the full agenda. I have time for Q&A and future topics. I think we have a lot of stuff we've already identified for future topics. Any other questions anywhere on the project that you want to ask before we wrap up?
Yeah, the ONUs and our projections, are we still on track for having plenty of those on site? I know we thought we would have, and we're going to revisit it in January maybe, but considering we put 66 in and you've got another 24, that's
a very good point.
I'd say we feel okay. We are still considering using a different piece of hardware, but it's been almost since Thanksgiving. It's been 2.5, 3 weeks, and we're still waiting on a quote from them.
from Calex.
From Calix.
Yeah.
So I think we met with them on December 3rd or 4th that week. Still have not heard back. So I need to ping them and see if they're interested in us and what their proposal looks like. It would impact both the ONUs as well as the Plume devices going forward.
And the OLTs that are in the POPs.
Yes, we would do some work with the switches and the POPs, the cabinets.
So as of right now, no more ONUs have been ordered. We still have about 200 left, but I've been told to just hang on until we make this decision about Calix before we order any more. So we have not ordered any.
Yeah,
What about our
within 3 weeks? It's going to be like do or do not.
Exactly.
and our
Order another bulk. The big picture is, even though we have 230 customers live and we have another 200 devices, that's still under 500 total Sienna devices, ONUs. Project estimate right now with Caroline and Dryden is around 3,000 customers. So we're still not even at 1/6 of total ONU. So it's not like it's too early to make a switch to something that might be better in the long run, especially when it comes to the potential of using these Calix devices to replace the Plume devices. They just have more options that might be better for some of these larger homes and larger businesses than making people buy multiple Plume devices. There's just other options out there. So we're going to continue working on that. We might have to do another burst, another 200 or 300 Calix or Sienna to get to where we're ready to make that decision. We'll just continue to monitor it.
Yeah.
And are we clear about how many the pushback on the Plume devices? Because now we've installed, I assume, a lot more of those. Isn't that right, Tracy? That's what most residential customers are getting, a Plume device.
That's correct. There are a few that don't want any, and they're using their own Wi-Fi. And there are some that, once they get the Plume device installed, find that they need a second one in order to cover the other side of their house or whatever. So yeah, we just got in an order of Plumes. We're okay with the Plumes. We're okay with the ONUs. Everything's good there. The next issue is going to become the drop cables, and I think we're going to be okay, but that could become an issue. Just letting everybody know.
And my understanding is we must have some ongoing cost with Plume, right? That we're paying monthly, Dave?
We are.
Yeah.
Calix does have a corresponding platform that they would charge us a monthly fee to use, or for our customers to participate in. Like I said, we haven't received pricing for that. It would be tiered and scale up, just like Plume is set to. With every number of user, you hit a certain threshold, you pay some more. We still have not hit the number of users we expected to with Plume.
The issue I see is if we're doing installations of 60, 70 a month, those 200 devices you have are not going to last very long.
That's true.
That is
That's
correct.
And you've got and you had a problem before with lead time, right?
Yes. That like Dave said, we need to make a do or die decision here within the next couple of weeks so we can
Yeah.
get these going if we need to.
And our drop cables in the same situation.
We've got drop cables ordered, a whole ton of them, but they're not shipping when they're supposed to from CommScope. All of our drop cables come from CommScope, so they're going to be the next issue. I've been working on it for the last week with the people from CommScope and the people from Gray Bar, and they keep assuring me that we're going to be okay. But based on what happened with Sienna, I don't believe anybody anymore.
Right.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be negative here, but realistic. That's all.
Totally. And that's where we have to live, because it's the reality is when someone places an order for service and we show up to do the installation within 2 weeks, we need everything we need to do the installation.
Yeah.
And we're basically at the mercy of these people. So I'll keep plugging away at it.
I'd also offer up, like, if you guys made a decision to move to Calyx, like that migration is going to take some time too. So if we're piling up installations at a clip of like 30 a month, there's going to be a gap in there where you're doing integration with Calyx and you're still going to need ONUs to deploy.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And maybe that should be the inducement to go ahead and place an order so that we don't get caught.
Yeah. I mean, this is no offense to Calyx, but they're probably going to be a little similar to, the response of, Sienna. I mean, hopefully not, as bad as that, but the electronics guys are never that quick.
They can't be that bad.
So I think one of the things that we should discuss on the January 3rd meeting or at a future meeting is not just showing the map, but identifying the number of parcels as we look at what's coming in each quarter, each month and each quarter, to then use that with some look back at what we've done as we've added more parcels. Right now, our take rate is around 25%. So if we manage a 25% take rate within the first 90 days of having a green zone with 100 properties, that can help tell us what it's going to look like over the next 6 months, 12 months. At the same time, we are continuing to get people signing up who've been in the green zone for over a year.
Right.
So we'll have to take all that into consideration as we try to predict what's going to happen. We've told the town board that we would be at 500 live houses by the end of Q2 and 1,000 by the end of next year. It's quite possible that we'll have a lot more than that.
I think you're correct, because Ryan said we're doing 30 a month. We're not. We're doing more like 40, 50, 60 a month right now. So if this continues, it's going to be like, we're going to be going like gangbusters. That's all I know.
And a lot's pent up in December, and a lot of cable got hung in December. So like a lot's going to go live in January. Just to kind of let you know that that's coming.
There's definitely some excited, optimistic neighbors. Lee Road, Goodrich, Hilton here in the village of Dryden. The Ithaca Estates Park has been producing pretty well. There's just some density that's going to be coming up even in that area in Etna. We know just from looking at social media where people are posting from that people are excited to sign up and get it installed as soon as it turns green.
Dave, could I have a few more postcards if I pick them up?
Yeah, we have some here.
Okay, because I noticed they disappeared on the sign I put, I stuck some on the side of the little poster, and then so they disappeared. So I probably should put some more up there. So can't hurt
Cool.
us. So.
That's great. Wonderful. Hey, thanks everyone. This is our last call of the year. We have 11 more days before the new year, so there'll be a lot of work that's happening from the operations team, continuing to, I mean, I think the team is out there doing work today, doing installs, doing construction. We're not taking our foot off the gas across the board to get this stuff done. It's been a huge year. I believe a year ago, there was no executive director. There was no MIP grant. I think we had 20 customers. It took us about 14 months to get 20 customers. Now we're doing about 14 customers a week. So huge work being done by the team. Everyone on this public broadband committee, the work you've done to get this started and keep it going, for joining the committee. I think Joel was a part of the committee last year. I don't think Arthur was. So thank you for joining this. And then all the participating partner vendors who've been helping us out, Hunt, Gleeman, Jeff's here from Municipal Solutions, Eric from Clarity, just very engaged, very involved. We have our operations meetings twice a month and just coming with ideas on how to solve problems. I don't think I've heard anyone just come in and is like, hey, I'm just going to complain. People don't show up here to complain. They show up here to work. It's been a really good year for us. So thank you all. Tony, I'll be here hanging out for a few minutes if you want to stay on the Zoom call. Otherwise, have a happy holiday season. We'll see you all on January 3rd for our next meeting.
Thank
Hey,
you.
happy holidays to everybody.
You did.
Happy
Holidays.
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 Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Right.